What's up, y'all? It's me again for another episode of Gangsta Guru. Y'all already know who it is. If you don't know my name, it ain't important. I don't know if y'all noticed, I ain't told you my name for a reason. That ain't really neither here nor there. Now is it? As long as you consider the source of the knowledge and do some research, you see what I'm saying? So my name really ain't important. I'm not really out here trying to promote my name. But it's me again. I want to say peace and blessings to everybody, y'all. Peace and blessings. Y'all feel that? Y'all feel that? Yeah, I know y'all see this glass right here. I got a, you know, little red wine, y'all. Little red wine. Ain't nothing wrong with little red wine. It's good for your heart. One glass a day. It's also too good for your skin. Some of y'all who don't know that. But we're gonna get right into it. So I ran into these two sisters at my workplace, and then I told them about the channel, and we chopped it up. And I asked them, I said, "Hey, y'all, what I mean? Like, what's a subject that y'all want to hear like really discussed and talked about?" And they both agreed they wanted to hear maybe some about the afterlife. So I said, "Okay, afterlife. Okay, cool. I think I can tackle that a little bit." And I don't know if y'all notice, my style or whatever, but I don't really like to give y'all answers. I mean, I follow a master teacher, and he don't really give us no answers either. He kind of expects us to use what we learn to get the answers. And that's kind of what I want y'all to start doing. Just kind of using your intuition, using the faculties that were given to you by the Most High, to the divine, to actually find these answers. Because believe it or not, a lot of times we second guess ourselves. We'll get the answer in our spirit, or we'll hear it in our head as a thought. And a lot of times, if you go research that thought, you'll be right on point. You'll be surprised. We've learned that in the Science of Heru. Shout out to my brother Hassan. The Warrior Scroll program. Shout out to my boy. He did this seminar called The Science of Heru, in which we found out that not only does your brain have neurons, but your heart has neurons, your gut has neurons, and also too, your loins have neurons. So these are actually your four minds. So you actually have four minds that you think with. Your heart actually sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart. So when they say follow your heart or go with your first mind is actually your heart chakra. Very important though. Also too, when people say I feel it in my gut, same thing. But yeah, use these tools to gain access to the truth. Because what'll happen is you'll start seeing more and more things about what you've been thinking about. You'll be like, man, I was just talking about that to my partner them, and then his bro just drove by with the truck with the same thing. That sort of situation. But yeah, let's get right into it. So afterlife, right? Afterlife. That's a kind of a tricky one because I mean the etymology and the phrase of the word afterlife. So to me, it sounds like somebody is trying to convince us that life ends. I mean, if it's afterlife, doesn't it sound like life ends? Now, they don't say that life is over. They just call it the afterlife, which means it could be a life, the life after, right? Or you could say what happens after life. And most people associate that with death, right? But what really is death, We don't know a lot about it. Science has proven that even after a body has died, they still have neurological activity in their brains. So that's very interesting. But afterlife. So let's start with science. Let's start with science, right? In this spiritual world, a lot of people like to use the word energy, vibration, which is all the same thing. Energy vibrates. So the law says, and this is scientific law. I mean, I don't mean like the Popo 12. I ain't talking about 12 said this. The law says that energy cannot be destroyed, only transferred or transformed. So that means that energy cannot be gotten rid of. That means it doesn't die. You can't. There is no afterlife. Does that make sense? And see, also too, we have to consider the language. We're considering this odd language that we use now. For you, you've been speaking English your whole life, but English is to the rest of the world a very new language, and it's a very odd language. It's a very tricky language. It uses a lot of your own words against you. A lot of times we're encoding curses on ourselves depending on what we say. But that's a whole nother conversation. But that's something y'all might want to look at. Look up how the English language is used for word magic against a person that's even speaking it. If you notice, a lot of holy men, their first language is not English, or they learn another language, like an old language, like Hebrew, or another language like that. So let's talk about the afterlife. So first off, like I said, the etymology afterlife, that makes you assume that something happens after you die. Now, if you're in a Christian church, you know that you either go to heaven or hell in the afterlife. But if you look at a lot of different pantheons or different religions or spiritual paths, you notice that everybody has something different that they are told that happens to them in the afterlife. If you come from the Kemetic line, sometimes they'll tell you that your heart is weighed against a feather to see if your good deeds or if your heart is heavy, or some people say you get to the pearly gates and talk to St. Peter. Some people say you do this, do that, and the third. I do want to point out that everyone has their own story as far as what happens to you, I guess, after you die. Now, I want to bring something up, because I recently had a conversation, actually, and I've noticed through my life over and over the differences of how people describe the afterlife. And I'll start with hell. So my mom's a minister. My mom's a missionary. She's been a lot of places. She used to like to follow a lot of evangelists coming in town. And there was this one evangelist that wrote a book about going to hell. Now, she said she woke up one night and saw Jesus at the foot of her bed, in which he slapped her foot, and then she was above the earth and she saw these brown tornadoes that led to hell. And I'm not saying hell's not a real place, but what if hell's not what you think it is? No. But anyway, so she described hell like a body. So she, the book went like the left leg of hell, and then she went to the next section, the right leg of hell, the torso of hell. And I thought it was very interesting. Then you have a story like Dante's Inferno, which gives you 7 levels of hell, right? Then there was a friend of mine told me recently, this young lady described hell on TBN, in which I'm be honest with you, I don't subscribe to that channel. TBN, I'm sorry if you're a really diehard Christian, you love that channel. But I noticed that they like to spread a lot of fear. And even in that same Bible that they read, it said God has not given us the spirit of fear. And I don't even have to read the rest. So if he has not given us a spirit of fear, then that is not the spirit of God that they are spreading, or the spirit of the Most High, or whoever you want to call the deity or your supreme deity. So let's continue. Afterlife. So like I said, the last girl, she explained hell in a different way than everyone. It's very vivid. So I asked this question as a scientific question. How come everyone who's been to hell, how come they all describe it differently? So then maybe that means maybe your hell is different than my hell. Maybe you don't have a hell. And maybe you do, and maybe you'll never access it. Also, too, you got to look at the properties of what we know about hell. Fire. What is fire used for on this earth? A lot of times it's used to purify something or transform something. You have to understand that what is above is below. So, anything that exists in another realm exists in this realm. And you can kind of find out clues about things depending on what they do and how they behave in this realm. Some people say, okay, if you do this, if you accept Jesus Christ, you go to heaven. And now let's go back to the same book, the Bible. We have a book that has been arguably plagiarized, and a whole line of things that you can say to discredit the Bible, right? But let's not discredit the Bible, but let's add back the original books, the Dead Sea Scrolls, things of this nature. You got books in the Dead Sea Scrolls that talk about reincarnation. You have many people on this planet today who can tell you that they can remember their past lives. There was this one story on television. There was this young man. He's probably about 6 or 7. He kept crying to his parents that he died in Japan. They're like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm a pilot. I died in Japan. And so they, them having the resources, they took their son in Japan, in which they got really close to a place, and he just started bawling, crying. Now, another interesting thing about this young man was that he was able to walk around an Arab fighter plane, the same type that was used in the World War II that he claimed he flew. Now, he did what they call, I think, a 15-point check on a plane, and something that a pilot would do. But this young man was about 6 years old. So where did he get the knowledge and the memory to do this? Also, he met the living relative of the man he claimed to be and asked this lady about this painting that only her mother and her brother knew about, that her mother painted of them when they were babies. So these are pretty amazing things, and there's a lot of evidence that points to reincarnation. Reincarnation. So that means to me, reincarnation, that means if I leave this place and my job is not done, then I'll be back. So what part of afterlife is that? That just seems like life is continuing. Also too, even when you look at John 3:16, whosoever believe in him, for God gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So everlasting life. Sounds like life doesn't end. Sounds like one continuous stream of life. Everlasting life doesn't sound everlasting afterlife. He never said everlasting afterlife. He never said, I'll see you in the afterlife. He never mentioned the afterlife. He only mentioned your transition, which most of us call death. Now, some cultures actually celebrate this transition because they understand that it is simply the body, the shell is being shed, which means you may be getting a new body soon. You may have someone that you screwed over in 3 lives ago that you have to go back and correct that karma. You missed it on this lifetime. So now you have to reincarnate again. And I guess get rid of your karma. Now, some people have a chance to move on, and some people, from what I understand, like to come back and teach. It's just like playing a video game. Think about the 3rd time you beat one of your favorite games. The 3rd time around, you kind of was pretty flawless. You knew what to do. You may have stumbled here and there, but for the most part, you know the game by heart. There may have been a few surprises that didn't happen the 1st time or 2nd time you played the game, but for the most part, it's almost as if you went and got help from someone to beat certain games. It's the same thing with life. When you speak to your ancestors, or you pray to your divine parents, they may actually help lead you the way to what you need to do in this life, so that possibly you may not have to reincarnate on this planet. Now, let's say, okay, so what if I don't reincarnate on this planet? What happens then? Well, you either, from my understanding, either reincarnate on another planet, maybe a more enlightened planet, could be a less enlightened planet, depending on what your soul contract says, depending on what you decided that you wanted to do to help the universe. Believe it or not, we're actually all here to help. Some of us don't remember, some of us don't realize it. Some of us are creating evil, so that the people who are here to help will come out the woodworks to fight that evil. And not only just extinguish their evil, but extinguish more evil behind them. So this thing called the afterlife, the more research that I do, it seems like it does not exist. Especially, let's talk about when people talk about near-death experiences. Most of these folks say that, when they died, when they were in a coma, they experienced a reality that felt 100 times realer than this reality. They call that hyper-reality. So what can give you a sensation of leaving this earth, but something being more real than ever before? Doesn't sound like afterlife to me. It sounds like real life. Does that make sense? Sounds like you getting pulled out of a video game and finally saying, oh, I'm at home, I'm on the couch, I got red wine. And by the way, shout out to all my niggas. And if y'all know me, I ain't talking about N-I-G-G-A, bruh. I'm talking about N-E-G-U-S. What it mean? Supreme ruler of Ethiopia. What's Ethiopia? Not the country. It was considered the whole continent of what we call Africa to this day. Anyway, I digress. I'm coming back. So yeah, like I said, it seems that we can't really find proof of an afterlife. I haven't heard many stories of people dying and actually going to hell, unless they seem like they were trying to promote an agenda, which is fear. And I'm not saying that, hey, you can't go through a process in the spirit world when you leave this planet that you wouldn't liken to hell. Some people say, oh, this is hell. I feel bad for those people. People think this earth is really hell. People think that. But you'll have a man that's in the same building, maybe in the same restaurant, sitting at the table right next to him, telling him he's living heaven on earth. How's that possible? How's that possible? Sounds like to me we are in control of our own world. So that means we're in control of where we go when we leave this body. Unless you have unfinished business, you're going to move forward. You're going to move on. Maybe you're going to stand in front of the great gods who determine whether your heart is light as a feather or if you owe anything. Maybe you'll be at the pearly gates with streets paved with gold. Some people describe their home planet as heaven. And it really just depends on what side of the coin you're looking at, and also two, who do you believe actually wrote the Bible? Because most people base this off the Bible. Who do you think wrote the Bible? Hmm? What jealous God said, "Have no other gods before me"? Didn't the God in the Bible created everything, right? Did he create other gods just so that he could be jealous of them? Or should we call him the Most High? Let's say that. Let's say he's the Most High. He's elevated above all the gods. So if that's the case, then who wrote the Bible and who took out the books about reincarnation and replaced them with books of fire and brimstone, if you will? I think you'll notice a lot of things in that book lead to fear. And I'm not downing if you read the Bible. I have a Bible. I know the Bible really well, actually. I used to be in all 3 services back in the day, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so I feel like most people's idea based on afterlife is based on the Bible. So you have to look at the source, consider the source. How do we get to 66 books? Why is the Catholic Bible different? Why does it have less books? Why is the Mormon Bible slightly different than my Bible? Sounds like to me that people are trying to put their own spin on things so that they can. Fear is normally used when people want to control people. So I'll leave that at that. I won't really go that deep into that. I know a lot of y'all probably understand exactly what I'm saying and it resonates. But I won't go that deep into that. So afterlife, what happens to you? What happened? You tell me, what happens to you when you leave here? And why do you believe that? Why? What do you feel in your heart? What is your heart chakra telling you? Is your heart chakra telling you that there is death? Or do you feel somehow disconnected from the word death? Do you feel a disconnect from the word death? You have to ask yourself. You have to really sit quietly and see how you really feel in your spirit, because a lot of times your spirit knows the answer and you don't want to listen. Happens to a lot of us. Happens to me before. Happens to me all the time. I don't want to listen, but you have to pay attention to yourself, and it will strengthen your signals and signs will strengthen. But to me, it seems like I said, the afterlife does not exist. Only because that is a construct of this third dimension, which is one of the lower dimensions, which is full of ignorance, superstition. There's a lot of reasons why these ascended masters came to the earth. And that's to teach us, to bring us out of the dark ages, to give us knowledge and wisdom on how to operate on this planet, this benevolent planet. I mean, this planet is hell. Why does the food that you need grow out of the ground? That water and water is a wonder, by the way. The water it's there, it comes out of the sky and sometimes the ground. It sounds like somebody was anticipating you needing things and left it there for you. Doesn't sound like hell to me. Hell to me would be being hungry and not having a way at all to eat, not having any food. Now, of course, this modern world, we've taken food and we made it a commodity. We use it as control and things of that nature. But that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother situation. But I can safely say to me that Earth is not hell to me. Now, there's been some things I've been through that have tested my resolve. But it's not hell. No, not by far. I have a wonderful girlfriend. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. Let's not forget I got red wine. I have fellowship with really good friends. I have a brotherhood that I am very thankful for. And by the way, shout out to the Sacred Seven. It's not the name of it, but that's kind of something that we like to say just to throw it out there. So again, shout out to the Sacred Seven. I love you, brothers. Peace and blessings. But yeah, the afterlife. I keep saying this word, afterlife. The word after means, post. Post-mortem, as if something has ended. And it's really just word trickery. I'll say it straight up. And this is for you to interpret in a more enlightened way. There is no afterlife. There's only one life. One life. I like to joke sometimes. People say, you only live once. And I say, yeah, 5,000 times. Or yeah, there's one life to live. And you do it through many bodies, many shells, many planets, many galaxies, many realms. So I hope I not answered your question, but I hope that I set you and your boat a sail in the right direction so that you may stumble upon the right answer. Because one day you will find out what's up with the afterlife. Hopefully it's not before you leave this world, but one day you will find out. We all will, and we all will see the truth. So that's something to think about, y'all, you know. Again, y'all, if y'all have any questions for me, email me at gangstaguru444@gmail. That's GANGSTAGURU444@gmail.com. And y'all already know that was Gangsta. So it's me again. Peace and blessings rain upon your head, man. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good night.